If you're anything like me, you woke up on Monday an hour late for work, failing to realize that Sunday was daylight savings time and you never noticed your clocks were off. That, or you live in Arizona and just laughed at the rest of America for being late. But as insufferable as it is one more sign that winter's on its way out and the riding season is closing in, which means it's time to start waking your bike up from its long slumber. If you winterized your motorcycle following our list of tips, then your bike is mostly ready to crank, but I have come up with 7 easy tips that you can do while it's just a bit too cold to get any real seat time in. Most of these things won't take more than a few minutes in the garage, and they won't cost you a dime, which is nice given that motorcycling so often asks you to fork over your favorite kidney. In fact, the stuff on this list is so cheap, unless you've got a massive 5-gallon adventure tank, it shouldn't cost you anything more than a few dollars. And without further ado, let's dive right in with number 1, wash your motorcycle. If you did watch our video on winterizing your motorcycle and actually did the things on the list instead of sitting on the toilet thinking that might be a nice thing to try, then you've already cleaned, washed, and refreshed your levers, grips, paint, and all that good stuff. But unfortunately, spending a few months under a dust cover doesn't actually prevent all the dust buildup. Just take your bike out in the driveway and hit it with a quick little hose down, then wipe it down with a few microfiber towels. You don't need too much elbow grease since you're literally just knocking off a fine film of dust, but it's better to knock all that dust off before you accidentally rub it into your paint when you go out for your first ride. Another nice byproduct of washing your bike down is that it'll look showroom shiny, and who doesn't like the look of a pretty and clean motorcycle? Now, the rest of this list assumes you didn't watch my last video, and number 2 is one of the best ways to help prevent hard starts or stalls, and that's to drain your fuel tank or your carburetors. Guess what, carb boys? I'm going to validate your opinions briefly. Are you excited? You should be. It's never gonna happen again. Carbed motorcycles are much easier to start after sitting for a while than some fuel-injected motorcycles. All you need to do is drain your float bowls. If you've got multiple carbs, it'll suck, assuming that you don't have a drain plug or a hose that you can pull quickly to drain the bowl. But if you've got just one carburetor, you might as well pull it out and blast it with a little carb cleaner just in case. The reason you might want to drain your float bowl is so that you can get fresh gas into the carb. It makes the bike way easier to start than old gas. I did this with my DRZ and it woke right up on half choke, and before draining it, I couldn't get the damn thing to start and run. If you have an FI motorcycle, you don't have that same luxury. There's no easy way to get gas out of your bike unless you take the tank off or get one of those little pumps to actually suck the gas out of the tank. Also, there's going to be some residual fuel in the line and so on and so forth. If you're experiencing a hard start on a fuel-injected motorcycle, pull your tank off and dump the old gas in a lawnmower or your neighbor's car or something like that, and before popping the tank back on, drain the fuel line. Without taking the fuel rails off, you might not be able to get all of it out, but you will get most of it, and that'll be good enough. Then just pop some fresh gas in the bike and it should start right up. You'll want to let the bike run for a while to allow any old gas to burn off in the system. Number 3, check your fluid levels. If you own a Japanese motorcycle, then chances are this one will only take a second. After letting your bike run for a little while to burn off any old gas, check your fluid levels. This means your oil, your coolant, brake reservoirs, and your headlight fluid. When it comes to oil-tight, well-made Japanese motorcycles, your oil's probably going to be fine. Just take a rag and wipe down the underside of your cases at seams and see if there's any fresh oil drips. Check your sight glass for oil levels and quality, and in the worst case, just do a quick oil change. When it comes to coolant, you're going to want to let your bike cool down so that you don't shoot scalding hot fluid and steam all over your tender flesh, but while you're waiting for it to cool down, check your coolant lines. See if they have any cracks or leaks and see if they're rubbing up against stuff that they shouldn't be. If they're looking a bit busted, go ahead and drain the coolant and replace the hoses with some fancy looking colored ones or stock ones. That's fine too, I guess. Once your coolant system's all set up, check out your brakes. If the fluid looks like maple syrup, then go ahead and bleed them, and if it doesn't, you're ready to go. Finally, your headlight fluid needs to be changed once every year and 13 months. If you're due for a change, you can find it at your local auto parts store between all of your lost 10mm sockets and the service manuals that you've never used. It's usually aisle 9 3/4. Now, while you're prepping for the riding season, you should add a rock form mount to your bike. Unlike those dumb claw mounts, rock form mounts don't push your volume buttons up and down or take up a bunch of room in your cockpit. Rock form mounts are sleek aluminum parts that don't shake or rattle loose, and Believe me, I've tried. Better still, their drop-tested cases mount up using a built-in system that doesn't make the case any thicker. It can also be used off the bike to mount up to all kinds of different accessories from sport rings to wireless chargers. They've also got screen protectors, belt clips, and even Bluetooth speakers. Click that link down below and check out their entire range of products and use the code YN25 to get 25% off your order. Plus, who wouldn't want to pick up something new and shiny for their motorcycle? Next up is one of the simplest things on this list. Check your tire pressure. Yep, super simple. Grab a gauge and a pump and make sure they're in spec. But before we move on, let's complicate this step a little bit. If you have spoked wheels, check your spoke tightness. Use something technologically sophisticated like a stick and smack it against all the spokes on each wheel. If they make a nice loud ping, then you're good. If they make a thud, then you need to tighten that spoke until it starts pinging. It's just like tuning a guitar, just don't overdo it, because if you bust a spoke, it's going to be a pain in the ass to fix. Go 1/8 turns at a time and check. Once you've done that, check your tread. If you have a nail in your tire and you've never noticed, this is a good opportunity to catch it. Or if your tread is spent, you'll have time to fix it before you start showing cords and spinning a bald tire. One thing that you should take careful look at is where your bike was sitting. If you don't move your motorcycle for a few months, it's possible that you've developed a flat spot on your tires. Those flat spots are great at killing your tires quicker and causing your motorcycle to handle funny when you're turning left. If you need to replace your tires, spend a little bit of money on getting a nicer set of rubber. Chances are you're rolling around on factory tires, and unless you're on a leader bike, you're probably not all that great. And for a few pennies more, you can get a much nicer tire. Just don't think about the fact that it might be several thousand pennies. Number 5, check and set your suspension. How many of you have adjustable suspensions? Go ahead and raise your hand. Yeah, that's what I thought. A lot of you. Now, follow-up question. How many of you have set up that suspension to your weight and riding style? Yep, just what I thought. A lot less. If you're anything like me, you bought a new bike a while ago with adjustable suspension and said,
neat,
and then never touched it because it rode just fine. Now, I am firmly in the you'll never notice it camp when it comes to suspension, but it will improve your bike even if you don't notice it. Just set it up and forget it. Your owner's manual should have all the details of how to get it done, and I know for a fact that Ari Henning has made several videos explaining how to do it. Ari to the rescue once again. If you really can't be asked to mess with it, but you do want to get it set up, there's a suspension guy in your town. They're everywhere, just like florists. You may need to find out who that guy is, but once you get your suspension tuned for you, you can leave it as it is, unless you want to eat a lot of cheeseburgers, or a lot less. Will it make your bike ride like a whole different motorcycle? Nah, probably not. But hey, it's a setting that you could be using, so why not get it done? Number 6, take a test ride. And I'm not talking about a quick spin around the block, but rather a nice long ride where you can hit all kinds of different speeds and conditions. It'll make sure that everything is working well on your motorcycle. Now, I'm going to recommend doing something very unpopular here, but seeing as this is a test ride, don't wear your earplugs and don't close your face shield. If your bike starts making bad sounds, they can often be filtered out by earplugs, and you're not going to be on the bike long enough to cause any real hearing loss. Listen to things like valve noise, brake squeaking, chain rattling, weird pops in your exhaust system, or anything that might have an adverse effect on your motorcycle. Without a face shield on, you can smell a bunch of weird smells like burning liquids or richer lean mixtures, all that good stuff. Slowly lean your bike into corners and weave across your lane from time to time to feel how your tires are gripping and if you've got any potential handling problems. If you've replaced the tires recently, it'll help you get used to how they handle, and while it's not super important, it will help scrub them in just a little bit. Finally, test the brakes. Slowly at first, especially if you've replaced the fluids, then grab a little bit more and more aggressively to make sure that they're working properly. Think of it as like a pre-flight checklist for the season. Number 7, go and practice your skills. Look, I know you think that riding a motorcycle is like riding a bike. Once you learn, you'll never forget. But the reality is that riding a motorcycle is an intensely perishable skill built upon layers of other even more perishable skills. Go practice balancing at low speeds. Go practice your friction zones, practice emergency braking, and even shifting gears. It might seem like a dumb waste of your time, especially if you're one of those I'm great at everything and I'll never crash types, which if you're honest with yourself, there's a lot more of you out there than you might think. But even the most fundamental skills of riding a motorcycle require constant practice to keep sharp. I'm also not going to say that it's only going to take an afternoon to shake the rust loose, but it's worth going out and playing in a parking lot or a dirt patch before you have to execute some emergency maneuvers in traffic. Better to bin your bike all by yourself than slamming it into the back of some Karen's van, because instead of picking up your bike and getting on with your day, you're gonna be picking up your busted teeth and she's gonna run out to her book club and start some anti-motorcycle coalition. Fact, when pirate Richard Worley, captain of the New York's Revenge, captured his second ship, he named it the New York's Revenge's Revenge. Goodbye.
Hey there, partner, you done made it to the end of this here Yammie Noob video, but I tell you what, there's another Yammie Noob video right over here waiting for you. Now, I know I'm real gracious like that, and I just do nice things for you, so why don't you take a look at this video, and you let me know what you think.